I think we've given them long enough, Henry, but don't be surprised if a few more jump in halfway through. So would you like me? I'll pass the chair over to you and you can let us know what you're going to talk about. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Yeah, for some reason I got invited to give a talk about a water harvester today that we built here in Peakirk. So I've put together a little presentation just to help me remember what to say. But if anybody's got any questions during it, please ask. Don't save them till the end. And I'm happy to discuss stuff that isn't on here, but I've just done this as kind of a guideline. So I'll share my screen and we'll see how we get on. Right. So can we see it? So that is a 3D model I did to just explain to people what I was trying to achieve. And now I'll talk about the reality of what we actually did. If I can get the PowerPoint working. Right. Okay. So a bit of background. This is in Peakirk, which is Cambridgeshire, almost on the Lincolnshire border. We're a small village, about 500 people, and we're 7 miles north of Peterborough. So we have some allotments on the village. They're managed by the parish council, but they're owned by a former resident who now lives in Florida. Got 28 plots of various sizes, so roughly 28 plot holders, and there's no water supply. So the allotment is on the edge of the village. Some of the allotment holders don't even live in the village, so there's a long way to bring your own water. So once we took it over, we thought, well, let's provide a water supply. So we thought about what are the options. Provide a new mains water supply, get somebody to dig the track up, lay a pipe, bit taps or whatever. Well, we're about 100 meters from the nearest pipe, so that was quite a big job. It just sounded really expensive. Thousands of pounds. And then how are we going to manage it? How are we going to charge the allotment holders for the water? Because it's obviously we're going to have to pay for it. How do we stop abuse? How do we stop people stealing water or just mischievously leaving the taps running? So we didn't like that one. What about a water harvester? Well, that sounded good. The water's free when it rains. But so that was good. Or do nothing. We'll just say terribly sorry, we can't do it. So we decided to do a water harvester. So I designed one. I estimated the costs. We're very lucky. We got a grant from the Peterborough Environment City Trust, which is a charity that does quite a lot of good environmental stuff on biodiversity mainly, but also moving into carbon reduction. We had a working party with some parish councillors, somebody from PECT, and volunteers from BGL Insurance. So the BGL are an insurance company. They have offices in Peterborough and they give their staff, I think it's 2 days a year, to go and do work in the community. So it's a motley crew. These volunteers were all office-based. They were mainly young, strong and willing, but not particularly skilled at building or clearing brambles or anything like that. But we had a nice day, and we actually did it in one. Oh, sorry, I couldn't see you there, Graham. Some reasons.
That's right. I just had a question, which was when you designed the harvester, did you have something to go on, or was it completely from scratch, or did you find someone else who'd got one and just borrowed theirs?
I saw one in a magazine somewhere that looked very much like what we ended up with, actually. So it wasn't designed from scratch, but
Good. No point in reinventing the wheel.
no, and I think it's quite a sound design, actually. Anyway, so one very hot day in July 2020, we actually erected it. I had prefabricated all the components. So it's just a matter of clearing the site, marking out the holes for the posts and installing it, which was good fun. And so that was the result. Looks a bit like the 3D render I showed at the beginning. So we have 4,000 litre bulk containers obtained from a local farmer who got them from a food company. So they'd been filled with vinegar, so they were clean. They didn't contain, any nasty chemicals. We supported them on 8 plastic pallets. That was an experience I'd heard from elsewhere, that wooden pallets rot away, and so they're not a good idea. We used treated timber, and we had a galvanized corrugated steel roof. So we built it, and it didn't rain for weeks afterwards. So the first time it rained, I rushed out to actually take a picture to make sure the rain fell into the gutter. So it's got a 12 square meter roof, and in East Anglia we get typically 600 millimeters a year of rain, which isn't a lot, which would have given us 7,200 a year. And the latest climate estimates are that you get pretty much equal rainfall each month, although that's not the case this year. So what did we learn from doing it? We should have had better foundations for the tanks. They have sunk a little bit and become slightly skew width, but they haven't fallen over and they haven't sunk totally into the ground. Needed to mark out the locations of the posts better, because when we actually came to put it up, they weren't quite in line and they look a bit sort of leaning Tower of Pisa in places. Some of the timbers I'd put outside the structure. In hindsight, I would put them inside so they're sheltered from the rain. And we needed a better means of connecting the 4 tanks so that they would fill up equally from the one pipe going into one of the tanks, and that you could connect them up so they only feeded one tap for people to fill their watering cans or whatever. So I just had one pipe running along the 4 taps, and that works, but it's a bit key mouse. The last one is you've got to pray for rain, because it doesn't come when you want it. So in conclusion, it costs about £1,200 for the materials. And as I say, we were lucky enough to get a grant for that. The allotment holders have really appreciated it. They make use of it, but unfortunately it's completely empty today because there's nowhere near enough rain in East Anglia to keep it full. But the good news is that 2 other parishes in Peterborough have built copies. The difference there is they have put a wall around it to stop people vandalising it. That hasn't been an issue for us, but I can understand maybe that it's an issue could be an issue in a bigger village. So thanks for listening, and has anybody got any questions?
Henry, what do you estimate the requirement is for the allotments? You've got 7,200 litres. How much do you need?
I don't know, actually, but I could imagine that this time of year, when a lot of water is needed, you might easily need that per week.
Per week?
Possibly, yeah. I mean,
okay. Yeah.
And
the other question I had is that you're collecting water just from your 12 square meter roof. Is there any way you could find a hill and collect water across a wider area, and so that you get much more without having to put up a structure?
If you had something like that, it would be something you could do, but we're on flat land here. We're in the fens.
Right,
no hills anywhere.
No.
I could extend it. I could extend, or I could have made the roof bigger.
Yeah, we should have to make it massive to provide enough water.
Well, I mean, yes,
You'd have to by 50 times if you need that per week.
we've had hardly any rain
Yeah.
last month, so yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So would your advice then, Henry, be that people need to have at least double the roof area that you've got? I mean, it obviously depends on which part of the country you're in and how much water you do get from the rain, but
Sorry, can I just check as well with that, Graham, for Henry? How big are the allotment areas that they're talking about here? Because if we get a size of the scale of the allotment areas, we can get a feeling of like what the requirements are.
Yeah, good point. The allotments are 3/4 of an acre total. So they're not big. The plots are relatively small. They're not the traditional allotment plot, which is so many poles by so many poles, which I can't remember the actual square area.
well,
Yeah, Chris.
Hi, I'm a parish council in Staffordshire, and the allotments that we have sound very similar in scale to yours. And we have a very proactive allotment association. They've done a lot of very good work, including replicating something along the lines of what you've done there in Peterborough. We've got a strange situation because whilst water is often scarce, and they're attempting to address that with the water tanks, the allotments sit in an area which suffers frequent flooding. When it rains, the whole area flows, the water from the surrounding fields, none of which does the council own hardly, flow through that area down towards, and the flooding is a real problem. And we are receiving advice and support from a flood risk team from Staffordshire County Council, and they are suggesting they have got an idea that they can put in facilities that can slow down the rate of water when it comes, and even possibly link it into the use for the allotments.
Yeah.
You know, it's really bizarre because sometimes you've got no water, and yet within a matter of days or weeks, you can have water flooding down past and around the allotments, and we can't use it at the moment, utilize it to restore it for the allotments. So it's a sort of bigger project than perhaps yours was. But if you said your rate of consumption of those tanks is as it is, this water could be a godsend if only we can trap it.
Yes, you need to find a way of creating a small reservoir, a dam or something, and then pump it into a tank.
Yeah. Just the safety issues of any children, because next door there is a playground. So we don't want any kids going in there and falling in and doing harm to themselves. But it's a conundrum, which if we can literally tap into that water, it'll be a godsend.
And I suspect somewhere in the country, somebody's already had that problem and come up with a solution.
Yeah.
But how you, maybe the National Allotment Society or somebody could help. But yeah, it's a good, interesting point. We've never had any flooding here since 1947, something. So yeah.
Stuart, you're next, please.
Hi, thanks for that, and I think it's a great effort. I'm just wondering what type of soil you've got there, and do the allotment users employ any methods to try and reduce the need for watering? I'm thinking about sort of increasing the organic content of the soil, mulching, cover crops.
Yeah, the soil, well, it's typically good soil here. I think it's grade 2 agricultural land mainly. It's we're 5 meters above sea level, so we're probably underwater hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. So the soil's quite good. It's quite friable. There's no clay. And I think some of the allotment holders do use mulching. But I'm not an allotment specialist myself, so I can't be sure. I'm not a real gardener.
Unfair question then, sorry.
But yeah.
But I really do empathise with your problem of lack of rain. I don't think we get any more than that in Essex.
No, probably not, no. Whereas in the West Country, they probably get 3 times as much.
Yes.
Henry, could I ask about the manifold issue you mentioned, how to get the water evenly distributed amongst your 4 tanks?
Yeah.
So what was the system you started with, and how would you suggest people do it in the future?
Well, what we have now is a single pipe connecting all. There's a tap on each container. So it's 4 taps. They're all connected into a single pipe that goes to a discharge tap. So any water that flows into the master will flow along the manifold and fill up the other ones. The disadvantage of that is if you have a leak, it will drain all 4.
Right.
What I contemplated doing was putting a balance pipe at the top of each container, near the top, so that when the master one filled, it would then spill into the adjacent ones. That has the advantage then that if you have a leak, you have 4 individual taps to fill it, watering cans. If you have a leak in any one, it only drains that one.
Yeah.
So far we haven't had that problem, but it's a possibility. But on the other hand, mine is nice and simple, and it's flexible hoses between the tanks. So as they settle differently into the ground, it doesn't create any strain on the balance pipes, but if there had been there. But yeah, so there's 2 solutions really. One is sort of high level balance pipes so that they all fill up to a certain level with 4 taps. The solution that I did, because it was easiest, I suppose, was just 4 taps going into one pipe, feeding one tap.
Interesting. I just wondering if the very flat land around you leads you to have to build against high winds, because there's nothing to stop the winds blasting you. Is the roof likely to disappear in some gale, or you so far have been proof against that?
We haven't had a problem. It certainly was a consideration when we put it up. And it's the slope faces east, which is probably not a good thing because the prevailing wind's southeast. So, but it hasn't been an issue. The only thing was that because I've only put a limited number of screws holding the galvanized sheets down, it rattled a lot in the wind.
Right.
Although it's not actually near anybody's house, somebody mentioned that it was disturbing to hear this rattling, so I went and put some more screws in. But it's been up 3 years now, and it's still standing, so that's something.
Well, I was just thinking, if it's not large enough, are there plans to increase its volume? I suppose if you're not receiving the rain, there's no point in trying to capture more if you can't get any more.
Well, I suppose if we put, bigger area and more tanks, we would capture more rain, and it would take longer to consume it. But you're right, when it's not raining, it doesn't matter how big it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say it's been a success, and I'm glad about that.
Yeah, no, I'm fascinated to know if the allotment holders are finding that they're producing more because you've got better water.
Well, funnily enough, we're going to have an allotment holders meeting in the near future. I think that's a good question to ask them. Yeah.
Okay, you have a question from Gary?
Yeah, Henry, I was just wondering, casting my mind back to the start of the year, which seems like an age ago now, it actually had horrendous rainfall, especially in this area. And I just wondered, did you actually ever have them all filled up at all at any time?
Oh yes, yeah. They certainly have been full and overflowing. And as I said, in going back a few years, it used to be lots of rain in the winter and not so much in the summer. But recently, averaged out over years, it typically is more evenly distributed throughout the year. But that certainly isn't the case this year. So, yeah, and if you have too much rain, you have too much rain. I suppose we could have put another couple of tanks in and had more in store, but yeah, in hindsight, maybe we'd have done that.
Well, hopefully, yes, people will learn from your experiences. And no, does the National Association or National Allotment Society give you indications of how much water you're going to need for your lot? It doesn't sound as if you've got any guidance there.
No, they probably do. I would imagine they've got some publication that talks about water supplies and water consumption. I've not actually looked for it. To be honest, I'm an engineer by profession, so I was more interested in the technical solution to the problem. The problem was there's no water, let's get some water. And I must admit, I didn't think too hard about the requirements for water. So yes, there's a lesson there. Find out what it is your customer actually wants or needs before you actually embark on this. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you very much. Let's see if anybody else has any questions. Andrew, good afternoon. As the late arrival, you got to throw in questions about something you've not seen yet.
Yes, sorry to join you so late. I was busy with an application from to turn my village into a motorway service station.
Right. Well, let me move to Gary then, who's got his hand up, please.
Yeah, I saw that Andrew at the Cartgate roundabout on the news thing. Yeah, Henry, I just also wanted to just check. I take it there's no kind of like rules or regulations about accessing the water. I just wonder, has it created any tensions at all with potentially people like getting more than their fair share, as it were, or something?
I'm not aware of that. I've not had any complaints. I mean, the clerk who sort of manages the allotments hasn't had any complaints. And there aren't probably anybody else who come and steal water. So I think we haven't got any rules. We haven't said you can only have 10 litres a day or anything like that. That's just up to common sense, I think. And the allotment holders seem to be okay about it. And so
It's good. It's so popular.
yeah, and we've got a waiting list as well. We could do with more, but that could be another project. Buy a bit of land, expand the allotment, build another water harvester or two.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for your time, Henry, and the knowledge. Very useful. I've just been looking at the program to let people know what's coming up next week, and I found, rather to my horror, that I'm telling people how the Great Collaboration knowledge base works. So I better start thinking on it and make sure it does work. So next week, we're trying to get a demonstration of what's in the knowledge base, how we get data into it, and what I'd like everybody to do to improve the way we're supplying information to everyone. So that's what's coming up next week. And if we don't have any more questions for anyone today, I would thank Henry very much for your time, and look forward to seeing you all in a week's time. Take care, everybody, and thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Henry.
Bye-bye.
Very interesting. Thanks.
Good. Bye.